All right, good afternoon. Today is Tuesday, May 11th, 4 o'clock. This is the Airport Commission meeting for the City of New Ulm. We'll call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the public meeting notice. We don't have any commission members attending via Zoom, so we will skip over that today. Next item up is introductions. So we have two new members on the commission, so we'll go around and do introductions. Joe Stedheim, City Engineer.
Tyler Zollner.
Oh, just names? Okay,
Yep.
sure. I'm Rosie Gear. Hi.
Brad Lipke.
All right, thank you. Also in attendance, we have Brian Page from Mead and Hunt, who will be speaking on the JASB in a little bit here. Next item on the agenda is the election of officers. So we need to appoint a chair, vice chair, and secretary. So commissioners, what are your wishes?
Does it look like each one of us will get an office here tonight?
It's looking like that, yes. Do we have any willing participants to be chair?
I sure can, Joe.
Okay. So if, we would need a motion for Tyler Zollner to be chair from either member.
I nominate Tyler for chair. I make a motion.
I second the motion. Or is that it?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any more nominations? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
You know, I really hesitate being so new here on taking a position as an officer. I'm an officer in a couple of other commissions in town, or I should say committees in town, so I would prefer not to do that
Okay.
right now.
Yeah, we can, any unfilled position we can fill at the next meeting as well when we have the other commissioners. Or we can just appoint them and hopefully they accept. All right, so I will now turn the meeting over to Chair Zollner.
All right. I guess accept any nominations for a vice chair at this time.
Okay.
Brad? No?
That's great.
No nominations.
Okay. I guess at that point, Joe, if we can postpone till...
Certainly. Mr. Chair and commission members, I can certainly take care of the secretarial duties for this meeting, and then hopefully next meeting, we'll be able to appoint the rest of the positions. So I'll make a note of that. Okay, then you can
Right.
move on to item 5.
All right. I'd accept the motion to approve the minutes from the previous month's meeting. Obviously, you can find those on your iPad. I don't know if you've had time to read through them. I don't know that you guys were here if you watched, but I guess at this point I have no corrections to what's written there.
Motion to accept.
Can I get a second?
Second the motion.
All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Old business. 6.1, noise alternatives.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, commission members. Bringing back to the commission for discussion the airport noise issues that have been brought forth from some residents around the airport. And originally we discussed the possibilities of changing the air traffic pattern for runway 15 from left-hand to right-hand traffic. So we discussed that as a commission, and we also discussed it at a city council work session with representatives of North Star Aviation were present. Chris Plasek, who was the chief flight instructor for North Star. So we went over the operations, kind of showing the council what a left-hand pattern is and what a right-hand pattern is, and showed them those differences. And these are those slides that were shown at that meeting. Here we can see the left-hand pattern for runway 15.
I was zoomed in, but you guys couldn't hear me.
Oh, wasn't aware you were going to zoom in. Sorry, Wayne. We'll wait for you to get seated. We'll keep going here. Just a quick update, Wayne. We had elections for chair, and then we just suspended the elections for remaining positions until next meeting. So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
no, that's fine. Glad you're here. So, you are here for the meat of the discussion anyway. So, again, so we showed the city councilors the left-hand pattern at 1.5 and then also the change to the right-hand pattern for 1.5. So luckily, we had Clay that sat through that, and there was an article in the paper about that the next day, and that article in the paper generated some discussion from local pilots who were concerned about that change to the right-hand traffic, and really the might not have the results that we're after as far as lessening that sound issue and things like that. So received quite a few phone calls and emails from local pilots concerned with that. So from that, kind of rethought the process, and a couple of pilots brought up alternative suggestions, which I've laid out in your council packet under that action form. Some of those alternatives involve requesting that pilots used an increased altitude while circling, and also maybe requesting a increased flight circling pattern outside that 1,000-foot circling pattern around the airport. So those are just some suggestions that were laid out that could, maybe the increased altitude would lessen that noise over the city. And if we push that traffic out maybe over the river valley more, that would also lessen the sound because of the gain in elevation over that area. So those are some of the alternatives. The pilots that called to express their concern with the right-hand pattern really focused on safety. That kind of blind approach with that right-hand pattern, when they're doing their final approaches, they can't see to the right, the way cockpits are configured and things of that nature, and really coming into that final approach blind, approaching runway 15. So with that, I thought it was very important that we reconsider this, and I wanted to share those safety concerns with the commission, and just bring that up for discussion once again before we bring this back to the city council. City staff did go out and take noise readings in the area of the airport and North Highland Avenue near the intersection of kind of 11th North. The readings that were taken, none of the readings came back in violation of any city noise regulation. The decibel readings were all less than 70 decibels. 75 decibels is the threshold for which there would be a violation of the city ordinance, but that would be sustained over 1 hour. So it's based on the average over an hour has to be less than 75. There was more noise from vehicles passing and just the wind in general than there was from the airplanes taking off and circling. So again, that was just a snapshot of one day of taking sound readings while flight school was operating here in town. So with that, that's kind of my staff summary. If there's any discussion or questions, I would be happy to try to answer those, or if the commission wants to discuss it amongst yourselves of what your thoughts are.
Did you want to say anything?
Mr. Chairman? In researching this a little bit, I talked to some aviation resources, and even if we were all in favor of modifying that pattern, we would have to petition the FAA for approval, and their approval process would take approximately a year. And what they would do, it would go through the Flight Standards District Office, and they would do an aeronautical use safety study, because their position, being the controlling agency for federally funded facilities such as the airport, is that they typically would accept a request and examine it and decide whether they want to pursue looking into a modification or not. And typically, the only reason they would accept to do a study is for a safety issue. And their position is they do not do studies strictly for noise abatement purposes. And in fact, one of their kind of guidelines is that state and local laws that attempt to regulate airport traffic or operations, including the safety of patterns, the weather conditions under which aircraft may operate, or the takeoff direction for purposes of preventing mid-air collisions, are preempted in accordance with the federal statutory and regulatory framework. So it would be tough to get it changed. One recommendation, however, would be if we could offer some sort of, not necessarily a seminar, but something to the people in the neighborhood who are concerned, that they could come and get a little more information on, we are doing this because federal regulations say this is the elevation we need, this is the pattern we need, this is the distance we need, that the pilots are required to follow those patterns. It's not something we're voluntarily doing to create noise. Just to get a little more education out so they understand we're not purposely trying to harass particular neighborhoods or particular people.
Sure.
Yeah, I had occasion over the past week to go to a social gathering at which there were 3 families from that particular neighborhood, and all 3 said, you know, it doesn't bother us. We kind of like seeing the airplanes, but that there were certain people soliciting negative feedback in the neighborhood. So that was one of the things there. Brad and I had walked the airport at one time together, just sort of to review it. And I also invited a retired Northwest pilot to come down and take a look. He felt that, you know, aside from what Brad has raised as how long this could take, the type of procedure that we'd have to follow, et cetera, he said, sure, you know, if you've got a pilot who has a pilot's license and you know that that's the pattern you're going to run, you know, I mean, that's your responsibility to deal with that. But he also said, why? You know, we were there listening to the aircraft coming in, and seriously, it did sound just maybe like a little bit of a lawnmower where we were right on top of it. So that was a concern, that it's something that is doable, but likely there's no need to do it.
Go ahead, Ben.
You know, I've talked to a few people too that and the thing that I heard was that there are some pilots that are coming in too low, you know, and that's something that, you know, I guess, I know one of the big things that have changed is that North Star Aviation is using it for school. I think if, you know, I'm sure they tell their pilots, students, you got to maintain the correct altitude.
Right.
But I do know from flying around in the pattern, every once in a while I see somebody coming in real low. And so I think somehow we need to make people aware that you got to fly the pattern. You need to be at the correct altitude or it's going to cause an issue. You know, it's not safe either to be flying in lower than you should be. So,
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Clausen, in regards to the low approaches, I can almost with, I can't say 100% because nothing's ever 100%, but with very high confidence that it's probably not the flight school students that are coming in low.
yeah, I agree.
As all of their planes, they can track which planes are here, the exact X, Y, and Z of every plane that comes in and out of ULM. So I would agree with you that it's probably our hobby pilots that fly in the weekends that maybe are skirting the rules a little bit. And what we do have our fixed base aircraft email listing for those owners. And we can certainly use that and send out a reminder to our local pilots, hey, we've gotten complaints, please abide by the correct traffic pattern approaches and elevations and things of that nature. Just as a reminder that we want to be a good neighbor and things of that nature to make sure we're abiding by those minimums to help not alleviate, but to assist with the neighboring residents and their concerns about the aircraft noise and things of that nature. So that's certainly something we can do at a staff level, as well as Mr. Lupke alluded to educating the public, but we can also re-educate our pilots that are based here locally too, just as a gentle reminder that we want to be a good neighbor as well.
Like I said last month there. My biggest concern to change the pattern would be safety. You know, and sure, the pilots, you're supposed to be up on the latest data and the latest airport information, but, you know, so you'll have the one guy come in that's straggling in, that's not up to date, and that could be a potential accident.
Is there any other discussion? Joe, did you have anything to, I guess, add further from any of your
No, I don't have
meetings?
anything else to add further, but if the commission choose to, I think I listed 3 alternatives within the packet. One was the right hand, the other was requesting the increased maximums, or the third was take no action at this time. So if one of those fits what you guys want to do, that's fine, or you can make a motion that's completely different than what I have listed as well. But I would like to take something back to City Council with the recommendation from the commission at one of the next City Council meetings.
Wayne, if you've got a
Well,
a motion or a recommendation for the council, I mean, I know, I guess I'm not asking you to speak for everybody either.
Well,
that's
I
not-
don't know what everybody else thinks, but my opinion is that take no action and leave things as is. You know, I think even if you change altitudes, you're gonna have to petition the FAA on that also.
That's correct, yep.
And so, I think at this point, you know, as long as we can educate the pilots locally that, hey, you gotta maintain that 1,000-foot
Yep.
altitude. And
Something that I just thought of too, you know, different city departments write an article for the paper once a week, and kind of the town talk sections and things like that. And we can utilize that as a resource to maybe educate the public on why air traffic pattern is the way it is. And I can work with North Star Aviation on that too, to use the correct terminology and things like that. Since I'm not an expert or don't pretend to play one on TV either. But I think that would be an opportunity where we can do a little bit more public outreach on the city's end to, along with North Star Aviation, to kind of explain that a little bit. So if that's something you would like us to proceed, we can certainly do that as well.
so I guess if you're looking for a motion or something, I'd say, you know, motion to leave patterns as is and reach out to pilots to educate on proper safety.
Yeah.
That's,
Maybe you said pilots as well as neighbors there? Are we
well,
thinking?
the neighbors, they are, you know, Joe said we could put an article in the paper about that. you
certainly,
know,
yep.
Yeah, but they really have nothing
they-
to do, they just,
Well, it kind of makes them feel like they're, yeah, you know, that their desires are being addressed.
well, certainly, we want that,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Joe. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
And the last thing on our agenda here is the zoning board procedure. I'm assuming, Joe, yourself and Mr. Page have some recommendations here, and I see we have a form.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think I'll just turn it over to Mr. Page and let him go through the process here and kind of update our new commissioners and go forward with that. So Brian?
Thank you, Joe. Brian Page. I am the airport engineer. I am from Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Mr. Chair and members of the commission, as Joe has mentioned and is in the agenda packet, we do have kind of a thing on our to-do list, I guess, as an airport commission body.
I'm just going to switch up stuff.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I can click it. You can click the mouse or just hit the
Just keep
arrow
going.
buttons?
I'll get it.
Okay. One of the things that needs to be done is every so often the airport zoning needs to be updated. And we're kind of at that juncture right now, and there is a standing contract in order to be able to do this. The contract was opened a couple of years ago, and it was actually tied to the ongoing master planning work
that is going on. And typically, what you're looking at is getting toward the end of your master planning to know what airfield configuration is going to look like, then move into the zoning update to be able to zone for it and protect for two different things. A couple of things that we're going to be looking at is the ground, the 2D area, I guess, around the airport, if you want to consider it that way. And then we're also looking at the obstruction and the height limitations around the airport as well. And this drawing that's in your packet, what this represents is this represents that 2D ground, I guess, zoning, if you would, particularly in the yellow trapezoids that you see off the ends of the approaches. And essentially what that is zone A and B comprise the length of the runway combined that you're looking at for the 5,000-foot runway that's here at New Ulm. So what you're going to be looking at is 2/3 of that distance is comprised in zone A, and then the remaining 1/3 of the distance is zone B. So 2/3, 1/3, you have a full length of the runway. So there's different safety requirements that come along with that. In addition to, there's also a zone C that goes around the entire encompassing airspace around the airport. And what that is by and large, you're looking at that obstruction and height limitation that you're going to be looking at around the airport to be able to protect for the airspace itself. So this drawing actually has the different colors on it, and what those represent is the various different jurisdictions that are going to be impacted by this future zoning. When you're close into the airport, you've only got a couple of different, or a few different ones. You, of course, have the city of New Ulm, and then by and large, you have Milford Township, which is around here. You also have Cottonwood, which Zone B kind of goes out and catches just a small little portion of it. So with the zoning and going through that process, one of the things that the state wants you to do is to make sure that you're reaching out to all the various different jurisdictions that are going to be impacted by this future zoning. So if you look at this outer dashed line that goes around, and Joe, I don't know if we have this second drawing,
Yep, you should just be able to.
arrow button, or? Okay. Okay, this drawing is a little bit more encompassing. You'll probably see it better on your handout drawing in front of you, but you can kind of see that the zone does sweep out just a little bit farther, and they call that the conical surface. And this is actually a Part 77. This is an FAA type drawing, and it actually represents the conical surface. It goes up to the horizontal surface, which is defined 150 feet above the airport elevation. And then it goes up at a 20-to-1 until you get outside the conical. So that's essentially how to look at that drawing, but you can see that this goes out, and it actually does catch a few more zones. Goes up and catches Lafayette, West Newton. Looks like it goes out there and gets into Siegel. I think that's Siegel, is that pronounced right, Joe?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, and then we have Cottonwood, and then we also have Cortland, which are also brought into the picture as far as the impact goes as far as the zoning. So those would be the jurisdictions that we would be looking to invite. And the way it works is an invitation would need to be sent out to the various different jurisdictions that are going to be impacted, inviting them to take part and participate in the future zoning exercise and updating it. Now, there are some procedural steps that you go through. Once you come up and adopt what your future zoning is going to be, there has to be a series of public hearings. There has to be one before this goes out for commissioner review, the state of Minnesota commissioner review. Once the commissioner does review it, then it comes back, and then you make whatever kind of revisions or comments or anything coming out of that commissioner's review. You address those comments. Then the next step would be is to submit this for final public review. So tonight, what we're really looking for is your approval to move forward with contacting the various different jurisdictions and inviting them to participate in this joint airport zoning board. If they do not, and they don't return any sort of, they're basically unresponsive, what that would mean is within 60 days, it's kind of assumed that they don't want to participate. But by and large, most communities are going to probably respond within that 60 days. But then they would have the opportunity to either participate, or they would have the opportunity just to waive it to the jurisdictional body, which is actually the city of New Ulm. You have control over this process as the joint board is being developed. Well, once the joint board is developed, then the joint board takes over and basically develops the update to the zoning ordinance. So that's essentially how it works, and again, what we're looking for tonight is just the approval for staff to be able to move forward, to send the invitations out to the various different jurisdictions, inviting them to become part of the board.
And then, along with that, Mr. Chair and commission members, on September 19th of 2017, the city council did authorize the establishment of the JASB. So we have been authorized previously to move forward with this. So this is really just that the first step is getting that resolution authorizing the creation by the city council. So it's really, now's the time to keep moving this forward. And now that we have our preferred alternative alignment for crosswind and things of that nature. So as stated in your packet, we're dealing with a zoning ordinance that's from 1984. So it is time for it to be updated. So anything else to add, Brian?
No, that's a good point. Just to remind everybody and remind the jurisdictions in this process that there is already a zoning that is in place. Zoning has been adopted since 1984, I believe.
Yep.
So what this is really kind of bringing it up to current standards. Obviously, something that was developed in 1984 probably needs to be updated, and that's kind of at the juncture where we're at. The state did roll out some new statutory requirements just a couple of years ago. So there are new statutory requirements that you need to follow in this zoning update process. So again, the upshot being that this is nothing new. It's already in place. It's just being updated.
Yeah, I guess I'd entertain a motion to move forward with the city. I assume it's the city staff, right, Joe?
Yep.
Would distribute the letters.
So moved.
Second?
In favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
Okay. All right. One thing I should point out is, Joe, can I back up? Okay.
I didn't make a slideshow, so it's just dealing with
Okay.
the exhibits.
Gotcha. Okay. One thing that I did want to point out is in this process, the existing Crosswind Runway is not currently zoned. It wasn't back in 1984. The new zoning update that we're about to engage in will need to include a Crosswind Runway. And one of the differences here is this is for the existing Crosswind Runway, which shows it extending, basically out over the city and going across the highway and Highway 14 in this direction. This is actually going to change according to the airport layout plan, according to the alignment that's in there for the new turf Crosswind Runway, which is more or less going to follow almost a more true east-west direction right on the section line. But it'll still be impacting by and large the same townships. It'll impact Milford Township to the west, and it'll impact the city basically off to the east. So just one little difference as opposed to what's out there today.
New turf gonna cross the existing runway like it does now?
It will, yes. It
Oh.
will cross it, essentially, if you can kind of follow my finger right here, there is a section line on your drawings that does kind of go out, but it's essentially about in this direction right.
Oh, okay.
So the intersection will be a little further south than what it is right now?
Correct.
Yeah, it'll be going from that 422 alignment to the 927.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Commissioners, just one last thing, just to update you on. We've recently been on a lot of lessees at the airport. We're down to one T hangar being available, so we're filling up. We only got one medium unit left, so that's good news. I don't think we've been this close to full for quite a while. So we have a lot of lessees out there that are new, and some of them are maybe just a few months using it while they're maybe working in the area or something like that. But I consider that a good thing that word's getting out that we have affordable units that can be leased and things of that nature. So I don't think any of them are local residents, but they're people that wouldn't mind storing their plane here and traveling to use our facility. And we keep getting numerous compliments on the facility as a whole. Out-of-town pilots are very surprised about what we have to offer here at ULM. So I thought that was information that's good for the commission to know. It's not very often we get compliments. So when we do get them, I want to pass them along. With that, I have no further business for the commission today.
Wonderful. If there's no other business, I guess I'd take a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Second motion?
Go for it.
Second.
Okay.
All right. All right. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.